The Elder Scrolls Online is an MMO that I have tried to get into so many times before but just never could, and honestly that really frustrated me. The sheer concept of an online Elder Scrolls game would send chills down my spine. Every time I thought about being able to explore Tamriel with other people and create these amazing memories together, it would give me butterflies. A journey that previously I could only embark on alone was now going to give me the ability to share those precious moments with other people. I used to think, why? Why is it so hard to get into this game that quite literally stems from a franchise that birthed the likes of Morrowind, Oblivion and Skyrim, all of which I have grown up with nothing but love for? I don't know if I was just expecting too much or experiencing too little, but either way, time after time, ESO just failed to land with me. This was until one final fated attempt, an attempt that would change the way I look at ESO forever. For this attempt, however, I would undertake with a very different perspective. Instead of treating the Elder Scrolls Online as an MMO, I would instead treat it in a similar manner to its predecessors. Nothing more than a solo-focused RPG. Just the idea of me, my boots on the ground, and my journey across these legendary isles. That single shift in mindset immediately changed my perception of ESO. It changed the way I played, the things I prioritized, and more importantly, the enjoyment I would receive from playing the game. You see, the reality is ESO is actually a very good MMO if you have no ties to the Elder Scrolls franchise and you aren't expecting anything else. For those of us that are avid fans of the Elder Scrolls franchise, we have to learn to love the MMO side of ESO. For to us, this online concept at first is just alien. It's kind of like coming home after a day at work and finding someone else's family sat on your couch. Everything feels familiar but just totally wrong at the same time. That said, and waffle aside, I can gladly say that I have managed to finally unlock the part of my brain that can appreciate ESO as not only a single player RPG but also for its online multiplayer elements too. What you're about to watch is a summary of my first impressions within my first 30 hours of gameplay in the Elder Scrolls Online. I will also share why I personally feel it is one of the most immersive, story-rich and outright beautiful MMORPGs that we have access to today, but it's not without its flaws. Sit back, relax, and try not to catch an arrow to the knee. The Elder Scrolls franchise as a whole, by its very nature, is a powerhouse when it comes to storytelling, and this is not overlooked for one moment in ESO. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I am no game developer, nor do I have the brain capacity to remotely comprehend the work required to fully voice act every quest that I have stumbled across thus far in the game, but what I do know is that to include this amount of voiced content to the sheer standard that ESO offers, it absolutely requires an immense amount of tenacity and attention to detail. At first, I figured it must just be the main questline that was the main recipient of the voice casting and storytelling. For, after all, one of the first more notable voices you hear within the game is none other than Sir Michael Gambon, Dumbledore himself. The caliber of casting doesn't stop there though. In fact, I couldn't believe that when I dug a little deeper, just how many notable actors have shared their voice work within ESO. The likes of Kate Beckinsale, John Cleese, and Billy Boyd, to name a few. Now, of course, having a more than prestigious voice cast would be pointless if the storytelling was absolute slop, but, well, you and I both know that that's very much not the case. Not even close. We touched briefly on the fact that the main story was incredibly well written, but I believe the true hero here is the many happy-go-lucky side quests that you will experience upon your adventures in the world. From saving a hopeless romantic that flirts with the wrong women and ends up being a cult sacrifice, all the way to exploring and understanding a dedicated storyline which tells the tale of your soon-to-be companion. There is something for everyone. The quest givers themselves are not static, instead they feel part of the world, often running up to you, leaning against rocks and standing to as you approach, or hailing you from inside taverns and cities. For every right decision, there is a wrong. For every yes, a no. Many of these decisions will have a knock-on effect as to how the closest people around you actually perceive you. Some decisions are so grand that they affect the very world itself. Discussions will play out between budding party members, and they're filled with sarcastic jabs and quips, and they really aren't tone deaf to the moment that you are in. For every sorrow-filled second, there are tales of remorse, and for every happy moment, there are words of excitement and hope. Honestly, even comedic value is not missed within ESO, as the storytelling had me genuinely belly laughing at some of the most crude responses that people will give you throughout the main story. I can't honestly tell you the last time a game invoked that level of jovial dopamine for me, much less in an MMO. Much like a fine sword without a hugging sheath, what would a great story be without an immersive world to cast it in? And well, the world of Nirn and the continent of Tamriel does not disappoint. Set in the Second Era and taking place thousands of years before the events of Skyrim, The Elder Scrolls Online offers you a world that feels not only alive, but genuinely believable to the eye. I find myself saying in all of these reviews that scale can make or break your immersion in a game, especially in a fantasy setting, and here, you will have no quarrels with this at all. From the ice-filled mountains of western Skyrim to the dark, craggy abyss of the Cold Harbor, every single step feels like a lifetime. The sheer size of the map real estate that you have available to you is enough to keep you busy for months without even partaking in the main story at all. This also isn't just some vast space with nothing to see. At every turn, under every cliff face, and beyond every mountain pass, there is something to either interact with or venture into. Each biome is filled with towns, harbours, chapels, monuments, delves, dungeons, world bosses, and much more. To flesh these areas out, there are of course many NPCs who, much to my surprise, act like actual people. In many MMOs, NPCs or mobs are just placed, waiting for you to either interact with them or end their life. In ESO, farmers are actually farming, guards are patrolling, local tale tellers are conversing in the street. Many enemies out in the open world will separate into packs and interact with each other, from bandits fixing their tents and warming by the fire, to packs of wolves laying together and patrolling. It's honestly a really nice change to see. Random events happen whilst out in the open world that turn a simple jaunt into a tense battle to the death with Daedric forces. Not to mention there are many collectibles and antiquities located throughout the world which tell their own tales for the keen readers out there. From tales of alchemists that forged a potion so strong they can teleport to people's dreams, all the way to tales of mercenaries in search of coin sent to their unknowing death at the bloodthirsty fangs of the Falmer. It's all here. And of course, let's not forget about the legendary lusty Argonian maid. We've all been there. The world of course will give you as much or as little as you desire. For those with a more streamlined mentality, the world will merely serve as nothing more than a pretty vessel for you to pass when you travel from A to B. But for those of you with a curious and wandering mind, ESO is very much a landscape to get lost in. If you are a fan of the prior games in the series, then not much really needs to be addressed when it comes to the musical design of ESO. The style, introduction, and tonal awareness of the game's fantastic soundtracks is still absolutely S tier. However, for those of you that did not play the previous entries, you can expect a really well crafted range of audio. From soft, subtle bardic melodies when approaching towns or inns, to the more infamous war march inducing battle music, there is something to suit every mood. When exploring out in the open zones, the game often leaves you with a larger focus on the ambient sounds of the world to do its bidding for immersion. From hearing the roaring of thunder tremble through the land to the erupting trembles of active volcanoes, ESO truly understands that at times, less can be more. Inhabitants of the land can be heard going about their day, humans conversing with each other, beasts roaring to assert dominance, and Daedra, well, doing Daedra things. It all leads to a very believable experience. The combat in ESO is where I feel criticism is due, but perhaps not too much is really warranted. First off, I want to say that I now retract my previous statements about the combat which I made before making this video. This was many months and many years ago. I stated that after trying it multiple times, the combat was just a turn-off for me, and after looking online, this was the case for many others too. Well, now after some time under my belt, my opinion has somewhat changed, and to preface this, I don't believe for a second that the combat is S tier or ever will be. There is still somewhat of a disconnect between you and the enemy you're fighting. Weapon swings still feel floaty and weightless, and you never truly feel stronger out in the open world due to scaling, but despite this, the combat is still much more engaging to take part in than some of its tab target competitors. At first, ESO seems to offer nothing more than light and heavy attack spam with some abilities mixed in, and whilst that is the case early on, it soon becomes a well-tuned dance to manage your resources and awareness in battle. The more your build fleshes out, you start to understand your potential for burst damage windows by knowing when to buff yourself or debuffing the enemy. Weapon swapping offers you the ability to engage from range or close combat depending on your build, and your ultimate abilities have the potential to turn the tide of battle if placed correctly and timed well. Dodging an AoE feels satisfying, and knowing not to dodge too much to manage stamina is a game in itself. Blocking and interrupting feel easily telegraphed and readable, and getting an interrupt off and then punishing it for big damage never fails to put a smile on my face. I would love to see some minor overhauls to the combat for sure, perhaps some new animations to accompany it, but all in all, it really isn't that bad compared to what we are used to. Having spent most of my time on the Necromancer, I am limited on how much I can cover the classes fully in ESO. However, what I will say is, no matter what class you pick, you are not defined to a specific build or weapon. The Elder Scrolls Online gives you full flexibility to play how you want to play. Apart from determining your initial core abilities and passives, your class really doesn't seem to matter all that much. The game works on a system of equip an item of a certain skill house and you can begin leveling it up. Each skill house, for example dual wield and medium armor, have their own abilities and passives that you can earn with each level. I personally dual wield on my Necromancer and find myself using a lot of the dual wield abilities over and above my actual class skills. As mentioned before, your class does not define you, and this also bleeds into the way that your armor works too. Essentially, if you are a caster, you would assume that you need to wear light armor to get a magicka bonus. And whilst that is true, that's only relevant up until the point that you morph your spells to now consume stamina instead of magicka, of which you'll benefit a lot more from medium armor instead. Now, heavy armor seems to focus more on health bonuses, ideally geared towards tanks or those that want to stay in the fight for as long as possible. And this diversity and class fantasy really opens up a whole host of builds and opportunities to be unique. As I stated before, I have always struggled with the idea of ESO being an MMO. Nothing to me ruins the experience more than people. I disliked the idea of my immersion being broken by others out in the open world, chat being spammed, crazy non-canon cosmetics, the list honestly goes on. Some would even say that MMOs perhaps just aren't for me, but before you come to that conclusion, I will say this. The reason I play MMOs primarily is not directly to interact with others, yet to just coexist with them. There is something so cool to me about being a part of a living, breathing world that is fleshed out by so many other people. What would have once been an NPC in a solo game is now someone just like me on their travels to their next quest. I picture MMOs like I picture real life. I don't like to interact with people, but the world would be a very lonely and strange place without them. With that said though, how are the multiplayer aspects of ESO? Well, at this stage I've only done 2 battlegrounds, 1 open world event and about 5 dungeons, so my experience is somewhat limited. I will however cast my opinion on those, starting with the battlegrounds. I must say, whilst I did not feel impactful whatsoever, I did have a lot of fun. To those unaware, Battlegrounds are the game's instant PvP, which is mainly focused around an objective. In this case, we were capturing major points of influence, like castles or bridges, and trying to hold them. It definitely felt good to be part of a team holding back waves of attackers, but I think my lack of build, power, and just general understanding somewhat capped my experience. In one-on-one fights, I would just either not do enough damage or get steamrolled, and it was often easier just to run to an objective instead. I'm sure this game mode gets better and easier once you hit level cap, as at this point I'm circa level 30 at the recording of this video, but what I did experience was really pleasant, to be honest, and non-toxic. Many people seem to run these for the daily rewards, which seem to offer large EXP bonuses. The open world events in the form of dark anchors were really cool, to be honest, to take part in. Seeing the sky tear open and the anchors fly down to impale the earth before unleashing the spawn of Molag Bal will never get old. Watching everyone rally together to fight the enemies back and then be rewarded for it was a really nice way to just bring everyone together and break up the moment-to-moment travelling. The dungeons of the game I was really impressed with, and I only wish that I had a little more time to truly take them in. You see, credit where credit is due. They are incredibly well designed from an artistic perspective, but they don't cater too much to newer players, as is the case in most MMOs. As someone who enjoys soaking in the world, reading quest texts and taking my time, I feel dungeons aren't the best fit for me, and that isn't directly the game's fault at all. Many dungeons I got into had an NPC quest giver to speak to, and mid-conversation, the NPC was ripped away from me because my team had spam accepted the quest and began clearing the dungeon. For every room we entered, I felt that I had about 10 seconds to take it in before I was rushed to another room or before I just lost sight of my party altogether. The reality is people have run this content a lot, so you can't expect it to be fully tailored around you, but at the very least, not being able to start the dungeon until everyone has accepted the quest would be nice. Many of the game's dungeons have layers of mobs and multiple boss fights, ending in the final room with a showdown with a bigger boss, and this was fine. It's sort of typical MMO stuff. The rewards both in the dungeon and for completing the dungeon make these worthwhile to do for whilst you're leveling at the very least, and they serve as a bit of a break from doing anything else. One thing I did enjoy a lot, which I actually wasn't going to mention here, was the delves. Now, delves to me essentially seem like public dungeons that you don't require a team to enter with. This means that you can enter solo or with a companion, but other players may also be in the same instance as you. This felt like a nice halfway house to me, as it still follows the similar format to dungeons, offering mobs to fight and bosses to kill, but it also allows you to go at your own pace. Now, the rewards aren't as advanced, of course, but you will still have access to certain things that you can't get in normal dungeons, like sky shards. Everyone knows the true end game of an MMO is not raiding, it's not PvP, but it is fashion. I am both pleased and worried to say that ESO has an incredible outfitting system for those who wish to use it. The option to customize every part of your outfit and then save it as a permanent transmog, which by the way doesn't change when you equip better stat gear, is really nice. New outfit pieces can be gained by learning new styles or motifs, and of course if you're willing to spend the money, then the Crown Store will house many of the game's more flamboyant cosmetics. Being able to dye each piece and unlock new dyes as you progress allows your imagination to truly run wild, and in cases, too wild. I personally prefer a more grounded fantasy look, but to many others that's not the case. There are many other topics in this video that I could cover within ESO, but I fear that this video would go on forever, so all in all, without dragging this video on, this is just a first impressions, and I want to state that clearly I am impressed with ESO, but it is not without its flaws. I will say this, if combat is what dictates a solid experience for you in an MMO, then The Elder Scrolls Online is unlikely to hit right away without you getting used to it. However, if you are someone who loves to be lost in a world that you coexist in with other players and make memories in, then you won't be disappointed. If you're looking for flexible builds, character creation, class fantasy, then ESO is definitely the game for you. With that said, I will check back in a few days' time with another upload regarding a more fleshed out review once I've hit level cap, started doing some of the end game dungeons, raids, that sort of thing, PvP, and let you guys know where I fully stand on ESO. But for now, just know I'm incredibly impressed. That's all for today's video. As always, thank you so much for watching if you've got this far. Leave a like on the video for the algorithm gods, dislike if you truly dislike it, and comment any thoughts that you might have providing they're relatively PG, and I'll see you in the next one.